For most of my adult life, exclusion arrived softly. It never looked like rejection. It looked like logistics. Oversight, timing. Those gentle, reasonable explanations families use when something unpleasant needs to feel accidental. Oh, we assumed you were busy. It was last minute. You wouldn't have enjoyed it. I learned to nod at those sentences. Learned the choreography of pretending they didn't accumulate, but absence has weight, even when delivered politely. Photos always came later, group dinners, weekend trips, smiling faces arranged in the easy geometry of belonging. I was never angry in the dramatic sense. Just aware in that dull, persistent way you become aware of background noise. Eventually you stop expecting invitations. Eventually you stop waiting. The villa happened years after that shift. It wasn't impulsive. It wasn't some cinematic declaration of independence. It was slow, almost procedural. Spreadsheets, research, conversations with financial advisors who spoke in careful, neutral tones. The Bahamas wasn't about luxury. It was about distance. About building something untouched by inherited dynamics. A place that didn't carry history in its walls. A space where silence felt restful rather than tense. I told almost no one. Not out of secrecy exactly. More out of a quiet instinct for preservation. Some things feel safer when they're allowed to exist without commentary. For nearly a year, the villa remained mostly mine in the simplest sense. Sunlight, pale walls, unfamiliar air, a strange, almost disorienting calm. No negotiations, no invisible emotional calculations, just presence. The discovery came the way these things often do, casually, accidentally, with the inevitability of information eventually slipping through human networks. A friend posted photos. Nothing extravagant. Just fragments of sky, terrace, morning light. My phone buzzed that evening. Her name. My sister never opened conversations with curiosity. We are staying for free this summer. No greeting, no question, no pause. Just assumption, wrapped in enthusiasm that felt less like joy and more like acquisition. I remember staring at the screen, feeling something oddly familiar. Not surprise. Recognition. Because entitlement has a tone, a rhythm, a kind of effortless certainty I had spent decades navigating. I didn't answer immediately. Old reflexes suggested softening, deflecting, converting the demand into something more socially manageable. But distance, real distance, changes things. The villa had done something subtle to my internal landscape. Not hardened it. Simply clarified it. When I finally replied, I was sitting by the window with tea I'd forgotten to drink. Sorry. It's only for people who are interesting enough. The sentence wasn't rehearsed. It emerged with a calmness that startled even me. Not sharp. Not emotional. Almost conversational. Silence followed. Then the unraveling. Calls, messages. Not just from her, from others. The familiar chorus of family confusion that arises when long-standing patterns encounter unexpected resistance. Attractive joke, but seriously, why are you being like this? It's family. That word, family, used less as connection and more as leverage, as if biology itself constituted permanent access rights. I didn't argue. Didn't escalate. Because the real shift didn't require emotional force. It arrived the next morning. An email. Professional signature. Clean formatting. Language devoid of personal texture. Dear Ms., per your request, we have updated the guest authorization policy for your property. Authority has a distinct quality. It does not negotiate emotional narratives. It does not interpret tone. It simply defines reality in operational terms. The property management company had implemented a named access system. No unregistered guests. No informal arrangements. No reinterpretations through relational pressure. Infrastructure replacing conversation. When my sister called later, her voice carried something unfamiliar. Not apology, but recalibration. A subtle uncertainty where certainty usually lived. You actually did that. There are moments when power doesn't feel dramatic, it feels administrative. Like watching gravity assert itself, because boundaries, once anchored in systems rather than emotion, acquire a kind of quiet permanence. I didn't do anything, I said, which was true in a way. I hadn't punished, hadn't retaliated, hadn't staged some theatrical refusal. I had simply aligned reality with preference. The conversation that followed was oddly restrained. Less outrage than disbelief. As if the deeper disruption wasn't access denial, but hierarchy disruption. Roles, once assumed fixed, shifting without announcement. After the call ended, the silence in my apartment felt different, not victorious, just settled. Because establishing a boundary rarely produces cinematic satisfaction. There is no swelling music, no triumphant release, only a strange mixture of steadiness and loss. Because clarity, while stabilizing, is rarely painless. Somewhere beneath the logistical consequences and polite distance, something more fragile had altered. Not broken. Just redefined. And that, I realized, was the part no one ever prepares you for. That dignity doesn't feel like winning. It feels like finally standing still,